Welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast that's all about real conversations for real transformation. I'm your host, Kat Polsinelli, professional speaker, MC, and best-selling international author. Here, we tackle the tough stuff, the mud that we all have found ourselves in. We talk about the pivots, the challenges, and the victories that shape our lives and our businesses. From overcoming trauma and finding your voice to navigating life's unexpected twists, we get raw, honest, and open. You'll hear from inspiring guests who share their stories of resilience, healing, and growth. Whether it's breaking through emotional abuse, embracing self-worth, or thriving in entrepreneurship, you'll find connection, empowerment, and the tools to keep you moving forward. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and get ready for stories that hit home and conversations that make a difference. Let's get real together. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am so excited to have you here with me today, and I am overly excited. So Robyn and I got a chance to speak a little while ago while she was prepping for her TEDx talk, which, by the way, has gone live. We will make sure we drop that information in the show notes. So I'm super excited to have her on here today and talk about all of the things, including your 30-second method, talk about a little bit about your book. And I am a huge fan, and I know that we kind of talked about this, but just for the people listening as well, I'm a huge fan of the small incremental things, right? We get so caught up in what's the big gigantic thing that I can do? What's this inspiration or this task that I can do? Or we just want to flip all these habits. And it's like, we wonder why we revert back to what is normal, right? What is comfortable, because we've like uprooted everything and the brain's like, and we're done. So I'm a huge fan on, the small incremental things and how we can use that to build and scale in the direction that we want to go. So this is one of my favorite conversations. So if I get a little goofy and giddy, Robyn, just go with it. But thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today, Robyn.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, I'm super excited. So as we dive in, I always let my guests kind of introduce themselves. So tell us who you are, what it is you do, and how you kind of got in your space.
Well, I have worn a lot of hats in my life. I spent 20 plus years as a corporate sales rep in the technology industry. And I recently left the corporate world and wrote a book about my journey through the World Marathon Majors and how I got started running. And it was definitely a little bit of a strange way to get going. I started later in life. I've also, it led to, doing these marathons around the world, a lot of traveling, and then eventually landing on a TEDx stage. So it's been so fun to tell my story in hopes that people are inspired, that they too are never too old to change. You're never too old to dream another dream, and that you can start really small and tiny and make a huge difference in your life, because I am living proof of that.
And I love it anytime that I speak with anyone that's done like a really big transition from like where they were to where they are now. And thank you for saying that as well, that you don't have to feel stuck in the space that you're in, right? You're never too old to try something new, to find a new dream, to start something that you never thought you were going to start. But I have to ask, where on earth did the whole running thing come from? Have you always been a runner?
No, actually, I never was. When I was growing up, I was not athletic. I was always very tall and gangly, so I was super clumsy, not athletic. I mean, the kids I went to school with would definitely back me up on this. I was very clumsy, still am to some degree. And I felt like I didn't really get control of my arms and legs until I was, maybe in my early 20s. And I played a little tennis, and I was never very good. And I would go to the gym and work out, but I never was a runner. And it started around my mid 40s, as things do. My metabolism started to finally slow down. I couldn't just eat whatever I wanted to anymore. I was, like I said, in sales. So I spent a lot of time going to dinners, drinking great wine, And the pounds started kind of coming on as they do when you get older. And I was also going through perimenopause, which at that time, nobody was talking about perimenopause. And so I didn't know what was going on with my body. I couldn't understand what was happening, why I couldn't just eat a pizza at midnight like I used to. And yeah, and I distinctly remember that I had been out late with a client. Then the kind, that 3 or 4 glasses of wine and lots of stories and bonding. But the next day I got up and I just felt terrible. I felt sort of ashamed of myself that I wasn't taking better care of myself. I looked bad. I felt bad. And I, for some reason, threw on my clothes and went down to the hotel gym, which I normally would go to a gym, when I was traveling. But that morning I got on the treadmill and I just thought, what if I ran for 30 seconds? And I had never run. I mean, I'd ran a little bit in high school, but I never had been running as an adult at all, not ever. And I just started running for 30 seconds. And when the 30 seconds was over, I had to hurry up and slow down the treadmill. And I had to recover for about 5 minutes. It took a long time to recover. But I kept doing that interval. And as what happens when you exercise, you start to detox and you feel better. But this time, instead of just doing that once, I did it again the next day and I felt really good again. And I kept that interval going for a while. And then I started to reduce the amount of rest time and increase the amount of running time. And I started to just feel like my body was toning up. I felt good about myself, but I didn't have any of the equipment I didn't have the right sports bra, the right shoes, the right clothes, none of those things. But I just started, and it started with 30 seconds, and I just kept doing it again the next day. And the next day, it was like a promise I was keeping to myself. And that just gave me trust in myself to keep doing it. And right around that time, as timing can sometimes have a huge effect, somebody asked me if I was interested in doing a 10K down in Charleston. It's the Cooper River Bridge Run, which is one of the biggest 10Ks in the country. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. And I laugh now because I trained for a year to run 6 miles. And I mean, that's not unusual if somebody is going from 0 to 6 miles.
Yeah.
Now I kind of laugh at that. But at the time, that was a big deal. And I signed up so early for this race that I was in the very first corral. And there's 40,000 people that run this race. I was at the very front behind the elite runners.
Oh, wow.
And I went up and over that bridge and I actually ran pretty quick. And I was so hooked. I was running through the streets of downtown Charleston and people are screaming and yelling and cheering for me that I didn't even know. And I just got such an adrenaline rush over that. And I had so much fun that from that moment on, I was just hooked and I wanted more of that. And I wanted more of the community and more of the experience of feeling like a total badass for doing something like that when there's a lot of people are like, oh, I can never do that, which I always thought that too. I can never do that. But if you put your mind to it and you train for it, then you actually can do that. And it was so fun. And I still have such fond memories of that race and love that race. So
That's so cool. I love that because I did some running in high school, but I was like 100-meter hurdles because I was always in softball. So we were we were sprinty. And that was always the thing of mine was like, there's no way I can run like people do. And my oldest son, when he was in high school, actually ran cross country. And I was like,
huh?
go you, because mom's not doing that. But I've started feeling that too, where it's like, I think that you get to a point where you not only like, do you know, like, oh, I'm probably not at my best, but for me, I would say that you get to a point where you just like, you want to be healthy, right? Like it doesn't even have much to do with like how you look and the jeans that you're going to fit in and stuff. You just want to feel healthy, right? To wake up in the morning and not feel exhausted or fatigued because of late nights or because of the way that you're eating and stuff like that. And I think it's interesting to kind of see that transition with a lot of people that I've talked about that are kind of around the same age range as us. And so funny because I was literally in Charleston last week for the first time. It was so pretty. So I can only imagine where you were running in that. Oh, so.
But I don't think it's just about running or exercise. I think it also bleeds into other parts of your life. I had
Hmm.
always been interested in writing and writing a book, and I would always say, "Oh, I'm going to write a book one day," but I never sat down and actually wrote a sentence. And you can't write a book without writing a sentence. So it's a very small step, but you have to
Yeah.
take that step. And so I think if whether it's exercise, whether it's writing, whether it's something in your career or something artistic you want to do, it all starts with a small, tiny little step. And
Hmm.
if you don't take that step, then you can never achieve really what you want to do. And if you're waiting to feel ready or until you're more qualified or until the timing is perfect, you're going to be waiting a long time. You just have to start. And it's never going to be pretty at the beginning. And we're not expecting it to be. It doesn't have to be. Nobody even has to know about it. But just keeping those promises to yourself, I think, is so key because
Hmm.
nobody's watching you, right? You're the only one that knows whether or not you're keeping those promises to yourself. And once you do, you start to trust yourself more, and then you're building that confidence and that momentum, and then it just starts to grow.
Yeah, and I kind of want to go back to that too, because you were talking about in the beginning when you first started running that that was that small amount of trust that you were giving back to yourself. And I would love your input on how you feel about this because one of the things that I have recognized in myself and other people that I've worked with is how much we give that trust to everyone else, but
Hmm.
we don't have that trust or the integrity, right? With like it's so easy for us to be like, oh, I'm gonna go do this. But like you said, if nobody's watching, it's like, meh, it's fine. And we're we're destroying how we feel about ourselves without even realizing,
Yes.
right? We just think it's like a one knockoff, like, oh, it's no big deal. And it really is interesting internally how damaging that can be when we don't stick to our own word. So I'd love your thoughts
Mhm.
on this as well.
Yes, I totally agree with you. I think it's a very astute observation that we are very good at keeping promises to everyone else. And I think as women, that's just inherently the way we are as nurturers and that sort of thing. But we're really good at keeping promises to everyone else, but the promises we keep to ourselves are so easily broken. And we chip
Hmm.
away at our trust every time we break those promises. But when you keep the promises to yourself, you're starting to build that evidence that you can trust yourself. And I think that is so important when you are wanting to go after a dream or a goal or something that you've wanted to do is keeping your promises to yourself when no one is watching. That is the key. And it's so easy to think, well, nobody's watching, nobody knows that I'm breaking these promises to myself. But you are the most
Hmm.
important person in this situation, not everyone else. And again, it stems from a lot of things, having boundaries and knowing what you can and can't do for other people. But it's so easy for us to break our promises to ourselves, but keep them to everyone else. So I think just working on that is probably 100% of what you can do to make your life better is to put yourself first. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think also a
Hmm.
lot of people feel guilty about that. And, I've gone through a situation with my husband has had cancer and a lot of health issues. And as a caregiver, it's really hard because everything is about the person that you're taking care of. And this could be, a family member. It could be just your kids in general, just raising children. You tend to focus in on what you're doing for them instead of what you're doing for yourself. But if you don't fill that cup up for yourself first, it's really difficult to be that effective person for them.
Hmm. And I think that you end up teaching yourself that you're not that important, right? So you like feed
Hmm.
into that belief. And I think that it's sad when it kind of sucks to know that we're kind of taught that way, especially as women, like that we
Yes.
are supposed to quote unquote nurture people and be there for everyone. And I mean, even I think about all the times that as a single parent, like my kids always came first, right?
Hmm.
And that was my perception for such a long time. And I get it right to a point, like, kids need you or your family needs you and stuff like that. And
Yes.
you're right, you have to make space for yourself. And I think that again, we can kind of come back to what you were talking about earlier is like the simple small things, right? Like making yourself a cup of coffee in the morning and having zero interruptions for 15 minutes, right?
Hmm.
Or going and deciding to take a bath in the evening and having no one around for 20 minutes. Like simple things like that that we're giving back to ourselves because I was listening to a thing from someone not too long ago, and they were talking about putting yourself first. And they were saying that, a lot of times women say that like going to get my hair done or my nails done is me putting myself first. But then while you're there, you're messaging other people, or you're checking in on stuff, or you're thinking about the things that
Mhm.
need to be done. So you're not actually present for yourself to be able to have it as this act of care. It's just like it's another to do that needs to get
Sure.
done
Hmm.
so that you can go on to the next thing. And I never thought about it that way, and I
Yeah.
think of how many people go out and do that and go right into something else that they need to do, and there's no space in between.
Hmm. Yeah, I've never considered getting my hair done to be a relaxing situation. First of all, it's really expensive. And then, there's usually a lot of noise in the salon and a lot of things
It's
going
true.
on, and I can't help but watch everything that's happening. But I agree with you. It's a tough thing, and I get it. As women, as a lot of times, if you're a parent or you have aging parents, or like in me, you have a spouse that has a lot of health issues. It's very easy to get sucked into that role of being that caregiver and putting them first all the time. But I have learned through therapy and other ways that it is just as important that I need to take care of myself first. Put your oxygen mask on first, because otherwise you will burn out and you will get resentful and angry, and you don't want that. And so I think even if you have to set your timer for even a shorter amount of time, being able to find that thing that you want to do, that dream that you have, that goal you want to achieve, and start small. I've talked to people about, well, I want to do 10 push-ups on my toes. We'll start off with one. Just do one. If that's all you can do, nobody's going to
Hmm.
keep track of that or say, oh, well, you can only do one. And if they do, it's like, so what? It's just, I think we feel like we have to commit to this certain thing. Like if I'm going to go run, I have to run a mile, or I have to run for an hour, or I have to go to the gym for an hour. And you don't. You can do it in a really small increment. I have a woman that I was coaching, and she's like, I just don't have time to do strength training. And I'm like, just do 10 squats. That'll take you about 10 seconds. I think you got 10 seconds. It
Hmm.
doesn't have to be like this giant, leg routine in order to make yourself strong. So don't get so overwhelmed in what the goal is. Just break it down into small increments. And I spent most of my career in sales, and that's what I had to do in sales. I would get a quote at the beginning of the year, and I would sit down and break it down. How do I achieve this goal? What are my milestones? What do I have to have by this date? How do we go about that? What are the tasks that we have to do? And then you just set out and do those tasks and execute. And that's how you do most things that are like a big challenging goal. It's a kind of daunting to think about something like, oh, I want to go out and do, a marathon. Well, that's a huge daunting task. Even a 10K was a daunting task for me. But just breaking
Hmm.
it down into small increments makes it so much easier.
Yeah, and I want to come back to commitment, because
Hmm.
that is a word that I think a lot of us use in a term that almost feels defeated before we even get
Hmm.
there, right? It's kind of the same thing with like consistency, right?
Hmm.
That's so commitment in my opinion, and I love your take on this. When we commit to ourselves, I think we also have to realize that you're not always going to be 100% in a space to necessarily keep some of those commitments, or life happens, right? You had
Hmm.
plans to go and have a nice dinner by yourself, and then a kid gets sick, right? And now like
Yeah.
everything's out the window and things shift. I think, and I'd love your thoughts, Robyn, but I've talked with a lot of people where that's where it ends. Like as soon as
Hmm.
they feel like the commitment's been shattered, or they can't keep up with something this one time, like that's the end of it. And instead of paying attention to any of the progress that's been made, it's like we've just decided like, okay, well, I can't do it. I wasn't able to do it here. Like, and then we revert.
Yeah. I think discipline's another word that people think, oh, it's such a negative connotation to it. But discipline isn't meant to be hard on yourself. It's, I think, becoming whatever it is that your goal is or your dream is. So for instance, when I decided I wanted to do these races and run these marathons, I took on the identity of a runner. I am a runner, so therefore I run. And if I didn't get a run in today, well, I'll get one in maybe tonight or tomorrow. I don't beat myself up for it because this is who I am. This is my identity. And building your identity around what it is that you're doing. Like if I am deciding to write a book, then I'm a writer. If I decided I want to take up knitting, then I'm a knitter. These are things that all help you build your discipline. And if you can't do something because something's gotten in the way, then it's not such a failure, right? It's not like, oh, I'm a failure, therefore I can't do this. No, it's I'm a runner, things pop up. I couldn't run today, but I'm going to get it in tomorrow because that is who I am. That is my identity. And building that identity is really key. And I think also having a community around you to help build that identity really is kind of the magic. If you have a community that, whether they are people in your workplace, they're people in your personal life, there's a club or a group, or it's just your tribe, whatever your tribe is, and you'll find it because there's everybody out there is doing something together. It keeps you going. It keeps you in the groove. It keeps you accountable. And you don't really have to rely on your motivation as much. And you also, if you don't make it to a run or to a workout or something, you've got somebody saying, hey, I didn't see you this morning. Hope to see you tomorrow. We got to get this in. And it helps to keep you going and keep you in the game. And all of a sudden, the fact that you didn't run today, well, that's okay. And I had this exact experience the other day. I swim a lot here locally. And I was swimming and my goggles were leaking really, really bad. And I got really irritated and just got out. And I didn't swim very far. And usually I swim a lot further than that. And I was telling one of my buddies that was there, I was like, yeah, I'm so lame. I only swam like 900 yards. And he's like, well, you're out here. You got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you drove over here and you got in the water and you swam. And I was like, you're right. I did do that. And even though I didn't swim very far because I was having issues with my equipment, I still did it. It's not a failure because I didn't go 2,000 yards. I got up and I did it, and I should be happy that I did. And I completely changed my attitude. I need to practice what I preach sometimes. And I think that's true in a lot of different things. People think, well, I didn't do enough, or I didn't make it. I didn't do it today. Well, that's okay. Bring in the community that you have, those people in your envelope that are going to help keep you accountable, and have them say, hey, you didn't make it today, but we'll help you get there tomorrow. And that is, don't go this alone. It's the magic of having those people in your envelope that keep you going.
Absolutely. And I want to go back. I want to go back to a word that you mentioned earlier, which is motivation. I know you got some things to say on this, so I want to hear your opinion. I mean, I have heard so many people, and this includes myself as well, right? Where I'm like, I just don't feel motivated, right? Or I'm not motivated to do that. Like, again, the language that we use sometimes ends up becoming more defeating than the actual thing that we need to do ourselves. So, how do you feel about the word motivation, Robyn?
Well, I think we've been taught that motivation is supposed to come first. And my feeling is, and my belief is, it's the opposite. If you are going to wait to feel motivated, you're going to spend a lot of time waiting. And really, every meaningful thing you've ever done or happened, motivation kind of follows after the fact, right? So say, for instance, you start cleaning out your junk drawer. Well, when you first start, you're not super motivated because it's a pain, right? But then once you get going, next thing you know, I mean, you're full on engaged in this activity, and it is going to get organized. Come, heck or high water, it's happening. So I think motivation is something that we say things like, oh, I'm not motivated, or I can't get motivated to do this or that. Well, if you're waiting for that, you're never going to do it. You have to just start. And that's why in my TEDx, I call it motivation is a liar. It's a feeling, and feelings fluctuate. And if you're going to wait on that, you're wasting your time, and years will go by, and you won't do what you are setting out to do. Now, if you try to do whatever it is, the activity that it is that you are thinking you want to do, and you can't stick with it, or it's just not something that is keeping your interest, then maybe that's not for you. I think a lot of people think, well, I'm a failure because I can't stick to this. Well, maybe it's just not what do you really want to do that? Are you doing that because somebody else thinks you should do that? Or you think that somebody else would be impressed if you did that? maybe really think that through. And is that really what your dream is or what your goal is? Because if you can't stick to it, chances are it's not really for you.
That is such a powerful thing as well. And I have fallen victim to that so many times where it's like I feel like I was taught or I inherited kind of this belief of like if you start something, you're supposed to finish it.
Hmm.
Right? And then we get ourselves in this space where we don't even want to do it. So now it's even harder to try to continue. And instead
Correct.
of us saying like, okay, well, maybe it just doesn't align, we completely beat ourselves up. And I've done that so many times. It's something that I've really had to learn to pay attention to. And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine not too long ago who she's in real estate and she's done wonderful. She decided to be a broker and try that out. And we were talking about it, and she's like, I hate that we're selling the office and we're going back to a brokerage. And I was like, well, why? And she's like, well, I feel like I didn't complete it. And I was like, but you were a broker and you did it for, 2 years. And she was like, yeah. And it's like, okay. So maybe that was your journey of being a part of that. Doesn't mean it needs to be the rest of your life. That
Hmm.
was what you did. You did it. You were able to say that you did it. Now you're pivoting to something else. And again, something that I have to constantly remind myself as well, because it's so easy for us to get stuck in, well, I didn't complete the task, right? Or I
Yes.
didn't do it as long as other people have done it. So therefore, it is a failure, or, it's not complete, or I'm not going to be able to do something else, kind of a thing.
I am so guilty of this too. I am probably my husband tells me all the time, I have so much FOMO. I always want to do what everyone else is doing. And I had the same experience when I decided to try triathlon. I have all these friends doing triathlon. I'm like, oh, it must be so much fun. Everybody seems to love doing this. And I did 4 triathlons. And every time I did them, I got so stressed out and so just a lot of angst. I wasn't having fun. And then I
Mm,
realized that I don't really want to do that. I love biking and swimming and running, but I don't want to do them in a race all together where I have to deal with taking stuff on and putting stuff off, taking stuff off, putting stuff on, and just like this whole like rush, rush, rush mentality. So you thought, I don't have to do that. I did probably more than I really wanted to. And then I just stopped and said, I can just do all the things, but just not race and have that experience and be all stressed out. It wasn't helping me. It wasn't helping my psyche.
mhm.
And I think a lot of times I get caught up in the FOMO. Oh, well, everybody else is doing this, so I'm going to go do it too. And as I get older, I think, and wiser, I started to think I don't have to do those things. I have a bunch of friends that are doing a trail race in a couple of weeks, and I kind of have a little bit of FOMO, wishing I was going with them. But I also have done that race before, and I didn't really have that much fun doing it. So I'm kind of glad that I had the maturity to say I love you guys, but I don't really want to do that. So
Mhm.
it's hard. It's hard. The FOMO is real for me. It's
I
real for
so
me.
agree with that. It is, especially when you have people tell you like how much they enjoyed it or how great it
Uh-huh.
was or what you missed out on. Like
Yes.
yeah, definitely. But I think that, like you said, the older that you get and things, like if you can decide who you are and what works best for you, right? Then I think that it makes it a little easier to be able to be like, it's okay that I didn't, right?
Hmm.
Because I'm the same way. Like I want to do all the things and attend all the stuff that my friends are, and then I'm like, I really don't
Hmm.
need to do like that. There's no goal to it. It's not getting me anywhere. It's just because it seems cool. And not saying that you can't do cool things just to do cool things. It's not what we're saying. But I think long term, right, you really have to be aware of like where are you putting your effort? What is bringing you
Yeah.
joy? What is challenging you? And from that challenge, you're also feeling better about yourself and there is an improvement, right? Because I think that we should always be looking to improve ourselves. And I don't mean from like just years gone by. I mean like at a day to day, which was another
Hmm.
hard thing that I had to learn. So I'm curious on your take, Robyn, but like I always compared myself to the version of me that was several years ago instead of like, how was I yesterday and can I do better today?
Oh yeah, and I think a lot of athletes and runners do this because, we're timed. We do a timed
Mm,
race or we we keep track on our Garmin's, and I even keep training logs, and I have years and years, stacks and stacks of training logs of how fast I used to run. And it still gets to me sometimes. I just did a race this past weekend, and it was, not near what I've done in the past. But I'm also older, and I have let go of some of that feeling like I have to be this certain type of runner or person in order for people to like me or have respect for me. I have a lot of knowledge that I can share, that I can help people. And just because I may not be as fast as I once was, doesn't mean that it invalidates any of those things. But yeah, I think there's a lot of that kind of comparison of yourself from when you were younger or when you had less knowledge and you were a little more risky maybe than you were. And, I left the corporate world. And I had spent my whole career in sales, and it was a very much a high achieving, high stress job. And I did really, really well in that role. And it was tough to think about what's my identity now if I'm not doing that? Who am I? And am I as effective? Am I as, I don't know, important? I don't know if that's the right word, but I felt like I was letting go of this huge part of myself, and I didn't know if I really wanted to do that because I had attached my self-worth to how successful I was in my job. And it's been a little bit of a adjustment. I would say it's been a lot of an adjustment to kind of let go of that feeling like I don't have to be this hard driving person who gets up every day at 5 o'clock in the morning and starts emailing and all the things. And I don't have to do that anymore. I can be a little bit more relaxed in my attitude and kind of just everything, driving, walking. I don't have to be in this rush all the time anymore. And that whole identity of what I was living for a lot of years, letting that go has been a challenge, but also kind of fun at the same time. It's like, okay, who am I really now? And I feel like I'm much more laid back and much more fun to be around, probably for my husband, especially. But yeah, they talk about comparison as the thief of joy. I think comparing yourself to others for sure, but comparing yourself to a previous version of yourself is also something we need to try not to do because we were younger, we were in different circumstances. We may have been motivated by different things at that time. So it's definitely something to be cognizant of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I agree with you getting out of like that hustle culture because my background was in the medical field and it was
Oh
constant,
yeah.
right? And you didn't slow down. And to this day, sometimes I have to really think about when I have slower days and remember that I enjoy that and I don't
Mhm.
miss, being so busy. And just doing all the things, and again, right, like you said, different age and stuff like that. Like I don't need to be like that like I was before. I'm also not in survival mode, so I don't have to push
Mhm.
in that. But it really is a big adjustment. I agree with you when it comes to stuff like that, which leads into all the new things that we want to do and we are doing. And I want to talk a little bit about your book as well.
Okay.
So tell us about your book. Well, obviously we'll make sure we've got the link in the show notes, but I want to hear about this since now you're a writer.
Well, it's funny because I did this race series called the World Marathon Majors. And at that time, there were 6 races. And when I first started running races, I was always asked all the time, when are you going to run a marathon? And I never really thought I would, but I got asked enough times, I started thinking about it. And I was coming up on my 50th birthday, and I decided that I wanted to run a marathon for my 50th birthday. And I really wanted to run the London Marathon. And I had no idea about how to apply or how to get in. And now I know how difficult it is to get into this race. It has now become a 2-day event because it's so many people want to run the London Marathon.
Oh,
And I
wow.
got lucky and got in through a lottery system, and I went and ran the marathon, and it was just so much fun. I had an amazing experience, incredible time. And while I was training for the London Marathon, so one of my training partners was running the world majors, and she was telling me about them, and I thought, well, that is such a cool goal to have, to be able to run all these world majors all around the world. I mean,
Yeah.
there's three in the US, but there's, one in Japan, one in Germany, one in London. So I thought that is such a cool goal to have, and I decided I wanted to do that as well. So I embarked on this journey, and what I didn't know was how many crazy things were going to happen. So when I went to run Berlin, we were having a major hurricane hitting our town, Hurricane Florence, and it was a category 5 hitting straight for us. And I had to leave my dogs and my parents and fly to Germany. And I was really stressed out the whole time because we didn't know if we were going to have a town to come home to.
Hmm.
Then we had the pandemic happen when I was training. I trained for Boston 3 times. That I did a virtual Boston race, and I did it out west, and there was a wildfire, and the air quality was so bad you couldn't even
Oh
see
my
the
God.
sky, the sun, nothing. And then when I went to run Tokyo, we had an earthquake that morning. It
Oh
was
my
just
goodness.
there were so many crazy things, and my husband got cancer during this time. There were so many crazy things that happened that went, but the one thing that I just kept sticking to through all of this strife and all of these things happening was I just kept that goal in my mind of what I wanted to do, that I wanted to reach this goal no matter how long it took. I was going to get there. And when I ran my last race in Tokyo in 2024, it was an amazing feeling to have think about my friend and running partner Mike has told me, think about every 5 miles each race and what you went through. And I did. For 5 miles I would think about the London Marathon and all the training leading up to it and all the things that happened. And then I thought about the Chicago Marathon for the next 5 miles, and it really brought a lot of things into perspective. By the time I finished, I just realized that it was a huge accomplishment. There's people that have run a lot more marathons and ultra marathons and stuff like that, and but for me, it was a major accomplishment to stick to this through all of the obstacles that had been thrown up in my way. And so, long story short, how the book came about was I felt like I had a story arc here of the girl who never was athletic, who was really clumsy in school, who never really thought that she could do anything like this, started running, started becoming this marathoner, started running marathons around the world, and culminated with getting this amazing 6-star medal, becoming one of the it's not a very big group of people that have done this. It's still a pretty small group, especially of women, and being a part of this group of people that have actually done this, and then going on to then run an ultra marathon after that, right after that.
Oh my
So
goodness.
it just, yeah. So I felt like I had a story arc here that just really went from, the girl who couldn't do anything to the girl who may not be the fastest runner in the group, but had the heart to complete the goal that she set out for. And I hoped it would inspire other people to realize that you don't have to be fast, you don't have to be this athletic person, because I really struggle with being athletic. I have to work really, really hard at it. I have to work out at the gym a lot. I have to really work at being athletic. And I'm not naturally gifted in any way whatsoever. So there's a lot of books out there about really fast runners who run, incredibly fast races, or there's a lot of books about people who run incredibly far, like hundreds of miles, and
Oh,
and they
wow.
overcome all these things. And there really wasn't a book out there about just an average runner doing average running things, but still achieving amazing results. So I hope to kind of fill that void.
Oh, I love that. I think that's wonderful too, because again, we kind of go back to that comparison, right? We're always looking to people that are at one side of the spectrum or the
Mhm.
other. And I think that there's also this piece of competitiveness that is kind of embedded in a lot of us as well, right? And I think that's
For
why
sure.
we kind of get stuck on looking up to these people and at the same time setting your own goal and having your own space where you can be proud of you and what you have accomplished. I think that that allows for so much more self-pride than, like this, the outside validation of, trying to be the top of the top. Which I think is extremely important, especially when you get to certain areas of your life of realizing that, like, I mean, yes, if your goal is that you want to be like the best of the best, then by all means go for it, but make sure that that is your goal and that's not a goal
Hmm.
that you've just set because of what somebody else's goal has been. I think that that's where we falter. I know I used to be that way completely.
Yeah, I think also the book isn't, for me, it's not just about running and about achieving that. It's also about just you can be someone who has no experience doing something and figure it out, immerse yourself in it, and start educating yourself, getting around people that are doing that. And you can do those things without being this expert or this Olympian or whatever it is. I mean, I have a ton of respect for the people in the running community that have done amazing things, and I am a huge fan. But there's also a vast majority of us who are just your average runner out there who's having fun and enjoying it, but also wants to do cool things and have fun results too. And so that's the majority of us. We're not all going to be Olympians. We're not all going to be, like you said, I mean, if that's what you want to do, go for it. But the most of us are not going to be at that level. And I wanted this book to be about, if you want to do something, you don't have to be an expert at it. I didn't have to be athletic in order to run these marathons. I just had to train and prepare. And once I started doing that, then I got better at it. So nobody's going to start off being an expert and being great. But one of the things I laugh at my husband every time he tries a sport, he's really good at it, and it's just not fair. And when I try a sport, he's like, you should just give that up. And I was like, no, you have to work at it. You can't, most people can't just go out here and play golf or do whatever. He's one of those people that can, but I can't. I have to really practice and get good at it. And then
Mhm.
I can do better. So I think going out there and thinking you're going to be an expert at something right off the bat is, unrealistic. So knowing that we're all beginners, we're all starting out at ground zero, and that it's okay, if you're not. I'm not a fast runner by any stretch of the imagination, but I can still have fun doing it.
Absolutely. I think I 100% agree with you. I was very competitive as a child, especially being in softball and stuff like that. Like that was the thing to do and to be the best of the best. And while it was fun as a kid, there were some consequences that really kind of set me back on some things. And I became very hard-headed and had a really hard time learning to let go of things or knowing when I knew it was okay to stop, right? So I agree with you. I think that the majority of us are looking for those achievements and those things that we can be proud of, and setting
Hmm.
those goals to that standard makes more sense because, like you said, not every single one of us is going to be an Olympian, nor do we want to be. I know I don't. I acknowledge and I love the passion and things that they have for that, which is awesome. And being aware of setting my own goals has been a really huge thing. And so I want to tell the audience that, for anybody that's listening, like any goals that you currently have, I highly suggest like sit down with them and think about those goals. Why do you have those goals? Why are those goals set? And is that goal really for you? Or is that because of something else, right? Is it because you're trying to make a parent happy or a spouse or your
Hmm.
employer, whatever the case may be, or people feel like you're supposed to strive for it, but like really pay attention to that because I think that we defeat ourselves in the beginning very early on before we even give ourselves a shot when we set those goals based on something else as external.
Hmm. Hmm. For sure. There are a lot of people that are in my circle that are in my age range that are doing absolutely epic things, that are just so outside of the norm. And when I'm around people that aren't runners, who aren't athletes, and I realize that they think I'm doing really epic things, it just puts it all in perspective, right? Because I feel like, oh, I'm kind of low. There's people that I know that have done, 100 milers, 200 milers. They run a lot more than I do. They're amazing athletes, incredible endurance athletes. And then people that don't run at all think that what I've done is pretty incredible. So I think it's all in perspective, right? And
Yeah.
I try not to compare myself to other people. Sometimes you kind of do, but I try not to do that anymore because I know that, my body is different. My goals are different. And what I want to do
Hmm.
with my life is different. Running to 100 miles does not appeal to me at all. And I love running, but I don't want to do that. But there's things that I still want to do with the sport, and goals that I still have, but just because I'm not doing what they're doing doesn't diminish me in any way. So I think
Absolutely.
it's important to realize that we don't all have to like the same things, and we can do different things within whatever realm it is that we're wanting to accomplish.
Yeah, 100%. So, Robyn, what is the name of your book? I mean, obviously we'll have the
Oh,
link, but
sorry. It's called Running the World, and it is on Amazon. It is available in ebook, paperback, and audio, and you can request it from your library if you want to do that. Or you can purchase it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, all the usual places.
oh, awesome. I love that. So, as we come to an end, I do want you to tell everybody, where they can find you and all that, but I have a question for you before we get to that.
Sure.
Of all the things that you've kind of been through, transitioned through, and learned, what is one lesson that you would want to share with the world?
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway for everyone is to for me, it started with 30 seconds on the treadmill. Find what your 30 seconds is. If you are wanting to do something, you've always wanted to do something, you wanted to accomplish a certain goal or a certain dream, you can totally do it. Just start with the smallest, tiniest step and keep doing it. Do it again the next day. And the next day, find a community of other people that are like minded, that are also wanting to do this too. Don't walk it alone. It's too hard. You were never meant to do this alone. And also, I think let go of any expectations of not being ready or not being the perfect time, or that other people are watching you. Let go of that and just go do what it is that you want to do. And, there's a lot of people in my life that think I'm crazy for the things that I do, but I don't let that stop me from doing them. And what they think about my goals or my dreams or my actions are really, they don't concern me anymore. I've really learned to let go of that. And I think that's so, it maybe comes with age, I don't know, but it just is so freeing.
Yeah.
When I was writing my book, I had a lot of imposter syndrome, but I wrote down Mel Robbins, let them on a Post-it note, which really kind
Yeah.
of means like F them. And I looked at that a lot, and now I don't need that anymore. I don't need that Post-it note anymore because I don't let those things get to me. But I would just say start with the smallest possible step you can take and just keep doing it, even if it's tiny. Step the next day. I mean, I started with 30 seconds on a treadmill and it completely changed my life.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Mic drop. No, tell everybody, Robyn, then how can they find you? How can they follow you? How can they be in your world?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. It's under my name. It's Robyn with a Y, Robyn Godfrey, Godfrey. My website is my name, robyngodfrey.com. I'm on Instagram at robyn.godfrey.speaker, and on YouTube as well. So my TEDx is out in the world. If you want to take a look at it, it's called What If Motivation is the Problem?
Oh, it's such a good talk. So we're going to have that. I've already watched it. So we're going to put all that information in the show notes. So make it super easy for you to find Robyn, to follow her, get her book. Please take the time to listen to her TEDx talk, give her a thumbs up and comment on it. It is a really, really good talk. Robyn, thank you so much for being a part of the
Thank you,
podcast
Kat.
today. Absolutely. I love the small integrations. And I think that as we are halfway through the year now in 2026, I think that this is a really good reminder to step back and look at, how do you want the rest of your year to look? And do you plan to live it by somebody else, or do you want to start setting goals for you? And if you choose to set goals for you, what are the small things that you can start with, right? It doesn't mean that everything has to be done right then and there. It doesn't mean that everything has to be done by the end of this year. I do think it's important to push forward, but to also give yourself grace, right? And be okay when things don't align with you anymore, and be okay with maybe pivoting away from it. Again, hard lesson for me to learn is being able to let go of stuff when you haven't reached what everyone else considers the finish line, and know that you took it in a direction that worked best for you, but it's okay if things shift. I think that we need to remind ourselves of that on a regular basis. So, Robyn, again, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. To everybody else out there, I hope you got some wonderful takeaways and nuggets. Again, please be sure to watch Robyn's TEDx talk as well and follow her. Until next time, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference it makes in your life. Catch you later.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Real Chat with Kat today, where real stories meet real solutions. If you love today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review on Apple, and share this with someone who may also need to hear this as well. Let's also keep the conversation going. Follow me on socials at The Lotus Effect, connect with our incredible guests, and remember, you are never alone. Your story matters, and you have the ability and the power to rewrite it. You always have a choice. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and keep showing up as the incredible, unstoppable